everyone. Welcome back to Novel Idea. My name is Dia, and today I have for you the BookTube Buddy. Introduce your BookTube Buddy tag.
Something like that.
And Christy Lewis from Dostoevsky in Space is the one that actually invented this.
Created.
And she tagged Tiffany in it. And so there's going to be a video up on Tiffany's channel where she's asking me questions. And now this one will be up for me asking Tiffany questions. So if you don't know Tiffany, her channel is Beautiful Minutia. And she has been doing this for, is it 2 years? 3?
Yep. 2. A little over 2 years. It was 2 years in January.
And she has the best channel. It's so much fun. It is. It's so much fun. And every now and then you get to see her daughter, and every now and then you get to see her husband, and all the time you get to see the kitties and the dogs and everything else. So make sure you go over and check her channel out too. All right, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So we're going to just jump in. And the first question is, what genres do you like to read?
I think that I read a little bit of everything, but I would say that like predominantly I read a lot of classics. That's definitely my favorite genre. And I do read a lot of middle grade, but that's not technically a genre. That's an age range. But I do read a lot of middle grade. So I'm with my daughter because she's right smack dab in the middle grade age range. And then I am kind of like coming into my fantasy era. So I've been reading a lot more fantasy over the last like probably year or two. So that's been really fun to kind of like explore high fantasy because I'd kind of done like more low-key fantasy in the past. So it's been fun to delve into that genre.
Have your preferences changed over the course of your time on BookTube?
I think that there are some books and things that I've become aware of that I didn't know about before that I'm enjoying. But overall, I would say that I've actually become more comfortable in my preferences over my time on BookTube. Because when I first started, most of the booktubers I was watching were reading a lot of like YA fantasy new releases. Like that was predominantly what people were reading. And so I felt like I should be like, I'm like, oh, this is what everyone's reading, so I should give this a try. And found out that I don't necessarily like a lot of like mainstream new releases, and some I do. But I love like classics, and I love backlisted books, especially because I thrift a lot of my books that I buy.
Mm-hmm.
So I've become more comfortable in thinking like, because I thought like, wow, I feel kind of weird. I feel like I'm the only one that like loves classics. And that is so not true. Since I've come on BookTube, it's like I found my people. I found my corner of BookTube, which is wonderful. So I would say that I've become more comfortable, and I would mostly say like less easily influenced. I don't know if that's the right word. But like I've kind of realized like, okay, just because a book is popular doesn't mean like I should like it. It's okay if I don't.
What really gets me is when my people like a book that I don't.
It does happen. We'll get to that in this interview.
I'm like, oh, I should like this book. My people like it. What kinds of videos do you enjoy making?
I think my favorite type of video to make is vlogs, even though it requires the most effort from me. So I have to record all the B-roll, and then you have to edit them in and put music in there and stuff. But the reason I love them so much is because of the B-roll. Because sometimes my family and I, we will just go back and watch old vlogs and only watch like the B-roll because it's like a digital scrapbook. So we'll have like clips. We were watching one, I guess it was a week or two ago. We were watching one from Christmas time, and we had just gotten our, well, they're cats now, but they were kittens, and we had just gotten them. And now they're grown-up cats. And so it was so cute to be like, oh, look at them, they're little babies. Or vlogs that I recorded before I lived in this house here.
Mm,
So it's just cool to look back on those. So those are my absolute favorites, but I also really like doing videos like this or videos that are like challenge or game videos just because they're
mhm,
just so much fun to do.
mhm. Yeah. I don't remember a vlog before. Well, yes, I do because I remember the moving vlogs.
The
So
packing.
I remember the painting, the house painting.
Yep. That was probably like maybe my second or third vlog. My first one was during like when Chantel still did the Hey Reader-a-thon in March and then in
Okay.
the fall. My first one was during the Hey Reader-a-thon.
Okay. All right. Um, what is your process for gathering your thoughts on a book?
I don't have one. I wish that I was more organized with my thoughts because then sometimes I'm like, man, I wish I had said that. But I'm
I do
I'm
that
not
all the time.
organized. Oh, I'm not organized. I'm just like I have the books there and I'm like, here's what I thought of this book. Like that's pretty much all that I do unless it's like a specific readathon where I am going to have a live discussion on it. So like we did Flannery Oh January, we read Wise Blood. I annotated that book and I took notes. And I did the same thing when I read Demons and we did a readathon for that. So there are certain books that I do that for, but that's not something that I do all the time. Like I might mark quotes that I really liked or something, but I'm not really organized with my thoughts. I wish I was one of those people and I'm not.
I still, even when I write things down, I listen to my reviews back sometimes and I'm like, oh, I need help.
Cue cards. James in the background with like a teleprompter or something.
I need every little word scripted so I don't forget anything. Um, okay, next one is, what is a bookish goal that you have?
Um, let me think. I think one goal that I have is to read nonfiction, more nonfiction, and I've been doing that steadily over the last couple of years and trying to like diversify my nonfiction. I've always been pretty good about reading like Christian nonfiction to like uplift me and help me grow in my faith. I've been doing that for most of my life,
Mhm.
but I've been reading more historical nonfiction and really enjoying that. And my husband has really influenced me in that because that is like his favorite genre to read
Mhm.
is historical nonfiction. So that, and then also I started so many series last year. I don't even remember how many, but I feel like it was close to 20, which is ridiculous that I started. And I'm not continuing all of them. There's quite a few of them that I'm like, I don't like this, so I'm not continuing. But I'm pretty sure there was at least like 10 to 12 that I am continuing. So I'm trying really hard to like work on the series that I'm in the middle of before I start more. But I historically have not done great with that. So I don't have a lot of hope for that, but it is a goal.
Jenny saying that she was going to wait to read the Cosmere until he'd written all 10 books.
Yeah, good
Like,
luck. You're gonna have to wait another like 10 years or more.
I couldn't do that.
Well, I made the mistake. If you are subscribed to me, you know this. I made the mistake of waiting 8 months between Way of Kings and Words of Radiance. And I spent the first 200 pages going like, I don't remember most of this. Like some of it I did, like big plot points, but I'm like, who is this person again? So I had to like go and like read some recaps and it took me a while to feel like I was like had my footing again.
Yeah.
I'm not making that mistake in between books 2 and 3 of Stormlight Archive. Just saying.
I'm reading Jade War, and Jade City I read in December, I think. And so it
Okay.
wasn't quite 6 months, but I had to kind of get back into the rhythm of the writing and all of that kind of thing. So when I figured out the rhythm again and got back into it, I immediately put a hold on the third book. So it's
Good
like,
call.
I don't care what else I'm doing. I need to finish this series before I forget everything again.
At least you didn't do that with David. David was like,
No, no, no. Jack wouldn't have
as
let me.
fast as we can read this, we will.
Uh, and so much has happened, and I'm just like, I gotta know. Okay. What other hobbies do you have, Tiffany?
I love to hike, and now that the weather is getting nicer, I've
Mhm.
been hiking more. I love to hike, and I love to cook, especially ethnic foods, and
Mhm.
especially Asian foods. Like I love Indian food and Thai food, Japanese food, and Korean food, like all the Asian foods. Although Indian is probably my favorite. And I love bullet journaling. I basically started bullet journaling because I couldn't find a planner that had all the things that I wanted, and I didn't want to have multiple planners laying around and then lose one. So I was like, I'm just gonna make my own. So I've been bullet journaling for a few years, and it's probably like my biggest creative outlet right now. And then I
They're
also,
beautiful. They're
oh,
absolutely
thank you.
gorgeous. I love your
Thank
bullet.
you. And then I haven't done this in a while, but I love to scrapbook,
Mhm.
but I just haven't had the time to like go through pictures and like set them out and start doing it. But I did just get a new Cricut not that long ago, and so I'm kind of like itching to get back to scrapbooking.
I love it. Okay. What book have we both read, and do you have differing opinions on it?
Well, in terms of books we both read,
A
I
lot.
feel like Dia has read almost every book that I've read. So
A lot. I
Dia
know.
is like read so many books, so many books. So we've read a lot of the same books and we have a lot of the same tastes. So more often than not, we are like pretty much exactly aligned
Mhm.
most of the time. But you know, there is that probably like 1 to 2% of the time when we're not. So I'm gonna mention two. One of them was a buddy read when we read the Red Rising trilogy by Pierce Brown,
Mhm.
and Dia had a really hard time with
I
those
did.
books. They were very intense and very violent. And I didn't love the first book, but the reason I didn't love the first book was mostly because of the writing rather than the content. And
This
Dia
first
enjoyed
part.
it enough that she agreed to continue with me. And that was our first buddy read together. And
Mhm.
then by the time we were like part of the way through Golden Sun, we were both so invested. So we were glad that we stuck with it, but man, it was brutal at times. And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
Dia struggled with the brutality more than I did in that one.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And the other one that we definitely have differing opinions on is The Lies of Locke Lamora, Scott
Mhm.
Lynch. Because I've said this so many times on my channel. Like, I went into The Lies of Locke Lamora expecting not to like it, and I ended up loving it. And when I look at it, like on paper, I'm like, I feel like I shouldn't love this book because there's lots of things in it that I don't love.
Mhm.
But I ended up still loving it anyways. And so I loved it and talked about it. And Dia's like, oh, I've tried to read that a couple of times, but I've never been able to get past a certain point. And she's like, all right, I'm going to try it again because you loved it so much. And I think your conclusion was, I can see why you like it, but I really didn't.
There were so many things that I kept thinking, if he would have done this just a little differently, this would be totally my kind of book. And it wasn't even things that were intricate to the story. It
Mm-hmm.
was, it was just these little things that he kept putting on top. And I was just like, oh, Scotland.
I think it was the
You could be
found
so much
family.
more.
Maybe he gets better because that's another series I haven't continued with yet. I have the
Uh-huh.
next book, but I haven't read it yet. But that was one where like the found family got me right in the feels. So I was like,
Mm,
oh yeah,
yeah.
I'm into this. And
We
the
have to
language,
go through the,
right?
yeah,
The
the
language as
language
well.
and the violence mainly.
Which normally I don't read books that have super pervasive language. So I'm like, I feel like this should bother me, but it didn't as much
Mhm.
as I thought it would. I don't know if you saw, I replied to a comment of yours on Discord. You were talking about the language, and maybe it was Jade War that you were talking
It
about the language
was.
in.
Hmm.
And I replied and I said, on a scale of 1 to Loch Lamora, how bad is it?
It's not as bad as Loch Lamora.
It takes a lot to be as bad as Loch Lamora, let me just tell
Yeah,
you. Oh, sorry for the rabbit hole. We just like
I know, right.
over here.
Okay. Next question is we exchanged some book mail.
Yes, we did.
And so this is our second time recording this because the first time we didn't have any audio on my video.
Mm-hmm.
And so Tiffany has already opened these, so she already knows
Yeah,
about them.
I'm not as surprised now as I was. So I'll mention one that was not actually supposed to be part of this, but Dia sent it to me anyway around the same time, so I'm still going to mention it. And that's Princess Body by Hwang Suk Young. And it's really bleached out. Sorry.
It's really
Anyways,
blue. It matches your shirt.
I planned it that way. No, I didn't. I'm just kidding. So yeah, so this is like a North Korean story. And Dia didn't love it, but she thinks that I might appreciate it more than her, which is why she passed it on to me. But
Hmm.
then she sent me a couple of other books, which I'm super excited about. So the first one is The Thief by Megan Whaler Turner, which I hadn't heard of this book before, actually, either of the books that you sent me, which is super exciting. But this is the first in a series, right? Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think I remember one of the books in the series being one that Christy
Hmm.
loves. I think it's The Queen of Atolia that she loves.
Mm.
Maybe.
I
I don't
I
know.
think she loves the whole series, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I think she's actually finished the series. I haven't yet.
Oh, really?
I still have two more books.
All right. Well, if I catch up to you, I'll read them with you. And then the other book is The Goblin Emperor by Catherine Addison. Oh, I should mention The Thief is a middle grade, and this one's not, right?
The Thief is not middle grade.
Oh, it's not? I thought it
Mm-mm.
was.
Mm-mm.
Is it YA?
No,
It's a Newbery honor.
it is not middle grade.
Well, they nominated it for Newbery
You
anyway.
know, he at the beginning he is very young,
Maybe that's why.
but as a series, it is not middle grade. It's very adult.
That's interesting. Interesting. Okay, that's good to know. I won't just hand it to Claire.
Yeah, don't do that.
So, yeah, the other one is The Goblin Emperor by Catherine Addison. And I don't think I really know what this one is about. I think you talked about it when we tried to record this before.
Yeah, it is. This one could be considered YA, but if it is, it's like the upper adult end of YA.
Okay.
And there's no angsty romance or anything like that in there.
She
Um,
knows me so well. She knows I'm not an angst fan. I lived that for so long. I don't want to go back.
it's set in an elf and goblin world, and
Okay.
the elves have always been in charge. But his mother was a goblin, and he was kind of banished, or not banished, but hidden away. And something happens to where he becomes emperor. And it's just this political maneuvering and family dynamics and relationships and friendship. It's chosen family. It's just beautiful. It's so wonderful. I loved it. I made a comment one time. I think it was on Petrick. Do you ever watch Petrick Leo? Do you ever watch him?
Mm-mm,
He's
no.
fantasy mainly, but
Okay.
he made a comment, or I made a comment on his channel one time how much I loved this book, and one of one of the other commenters went, "What? Wait, somebody actually liked Goblin Emperor?"
Road.
Nothing happens in that book. And at the time that I read it, I was just so tired of reading fantasy books that was just one battle after another and one war after another, and describing the armor and describing the weapons and describing the moves. And, and I just was like, I'm so done with fantasy if this is all there is out there. And then I picked up this and I was just like, oh, I love this book.
And you're saying so many of my buzzwords, like slow, political, like I love slow fantasies, especially because I feel like it takes me a little while to get acclimated to a whole different world. And so I do have fantasies I love where you hit the ground running, but I love ones that start out slow and I can kind of immerse myself and figure out where the heck I am before everything starts hitting the fan. So I'm super excited about this one. I'm excited about them both, but I think I might be a little bit more excited about this one.
The other one is political as well.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And it has a little bit more of a um almost like a Mongolian kind of
Ooh.
empire feel to it. Yeah. Yeah.
And
So
Asian inspired is another buzzword for fantasy. So Dia's hitting all the marks. I'm excited. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. And I did send out a letter to you as well, but it just didn't make it into radio.
That's okay.
It's on its way. It's on its way. Okay.
You're so sweet.
Next question is, do you have a book recommendation for me?
So since we have already recorded this, I actually know which books to recommend to her because I had a stack of like 6 books. And I'm like, I feel like you've read most of these, and she'd read all of them except 2. And they're by the same author.
And they're nonfiction.
And they're nonfiction. So I'm going to recommend them both to her here. So the author is Dana Candler, and she writes Christian nonfiction. And I've heard her speak at a prayer conference that we used to attend in Texas every fall that they don't have anymore, but they had for years. And we attended for probably like 4 or 5 of those years. And she spoke every single year. And I just loved her. So I bought her books, and she writes so beautifully. I feel like a lot of modern day Christian nonfiction is like very like straight to the point and very bare bones. And she writes really beautifully. So the 2 books that I'm recommending to Dia are both by her. The first one is Entirety, and the little subtitle says Love Gives All. And this is about like God giving all of himself and all of his love to us, and how we should do the same, but that in the course of our Christian walk, there are times that we realize like, oh, like I thought I had given everything, and now I'm realizing that there's this little area that I kind of kept to myself. And so it's kind of about that kind of a thing. And then Deep Unto Deep, which I love this cover. I think it's so
I do too.
The Journey of the Immeasurable Love of Christ, and it's based on that verse it's in Psalm somewhere, like where like the deepness of God calls out to the deepness in us. And so it's about, connection with God and stuff. So I think that Dia would love both of these. I think that the writing style would totally be her jam. So I hope she enjoys both of them if she picks them up. I can't hear you. You're muted. You're muted.
Put myself on mute so that you didn't have to listen to all of James's political podcasting stuff going on.
Political podcasting. We love political things. Just kidding. Only in fantasy.
That's right.
It's not in real life.
That's right. Okay. Exchange BookTube memories is the next prompt.
Okay. So I had asked Dia this question when I interviewed her. So I will answer some memories, and we'll have different memories too. So one of my favorite Memories with Dia. This wasn't like on BookTube, but it was because of BookTube, because we read Oscar Wilde's short stories together for Victober last year. Because one of the prompts was to read a short story, a Victorian short story. And so we read his short stories like The Happy Prince and other stories, that collection. And we were just going to read one or two of them. And then they were so good. And so many of them were so beautiful that we just dove so deep into them. And it was just, it's my favorite buddy reading experience I've ever had still, because like every morning I'd get on and Dia had sent me messages about her thoughts, and we were digging deep into like some of the spiritual symbolism in some of them. And just, it was such a rich reading experience. And I think, well, I know I would have enjoyed the books otherwise, but it was like a whole nother level because of the depth of our conversation surrounding it. So that's one of my favorite memories with Dia. And then the other one is more BookTube related. So you may have seen Dia's announcement for Ellen Montgomery, which will be next month. And that was kind of like my brainchild. And I had been thinking about it like since I want to say it was like June or July of last year that I started thinking about it. And I was like, well, I need to wait to ask people if I want to do this in May. And Dia, I started talking to her about it in like September or something like that. And I was like, so I have this idea. And immediately Dia was the first person that I asked to be a co-host. And so I asked the other co-hosts, like a couple months later, but there was like several months of Dia and I just bouncing ideas off of each other and talking about different things, and her being just as excited about it as I was, which was so special. So I'm really excited that like for my very first readathon that I've ever planned myself, that Dia was like such a huge part of that. That was so special.
Mm-hmm. I am so excited about it too. I can't wait.
And we haven't even gotten to the readathon part, and it's already making the memories.
It is. It is.
Interview.
I love it. I love it. Okay, and then I'm supposed to tag a couple of booktubers. Tiffany tagged a couple in hers, so I'm going to tag a couple here. And I would love to hear from Kelly Reads a Lot. So you can choose someone to do this with. And I would love to hear from Talia over at Bandana Book Mom. And both of them started about the same time that I started on BookTube. So I am just wondering who they're going to choose. They may choose each other. They know each other. So anyway, so those are my plans there. And I think that's everything. I want to ask you though, same thing I asked you last time. Do you remember
extra question.
how we met?
Yes, I do. So I started my channel because I was friends with Chantel from Chantel Reads All Day, and I've been talking to her and watching her BookTube channel for a while, probably like 6 months or so. And I was like, I'm thinking about starting a channel, but I'm just not sure. And she was like, you should do it. You should do it. And so finally I took the plunge, and Chantel then shared my channel with her subscribers right after I started my channel, and like encouraged people to go subscribe to me, which was really sweet, and how I got like my first like 50 subscribers or so. And one of those first subscribers was Dia. So Dia has been literally following me and subscribes to me since the very beginning, which is really cool.
Yeah, I fell in love with it right from the get-go. Just you talking about your homeschool and about your daughter. Because I think Claire was in one of the very first videos too with you.
She was, yeah, it was one of the first few videos.
Yeah.
She did a middle grade fantasy recommendation video.
It was great. It was great. And that was the very first video of Chantel's that I had watched. And so I only had watched one, and she was telling us to go watch you and Becca over at Hicks Picks Books, who's not doing this any longer, I don't think. But Yeah, so that I watch one video and I get recommended to
That's
another
so funny.
booktuber, and I'm so glad that she did. I'm so glad that she mentioned it and everything. But
And then I talked Dia into starting her channel. So
yeah,
I did to her what Chantel did to me.
yes, yes, it was. And you were such a huge help when I started with learning how to edit and just all of the little details. Do I need a microphone? Do I need to do these other things? And it's been a struggle, but I'm an old woman.
You've done so well, though. I'm impressed.
So I'm just happy to be doing this and have such a wonderful group and community around me to talk about things I love. I'm so blessed. So
It's wonderful. This community is the best.
when we were moving away from Austin, it took us a long time to to actually make the move. And so I had started packing prior to that, and I was going through books, and I had a bunch of my kids' books from when we were homeschooling, when my kids were home. And I was like, I don't want to like carry these around with me. So I called my kids and asked them if they still wanted them, and they said no. So then I called, or I didn't even call Tiffany. I had like contacted you somehow. Oh, I think it was on Instagram, and
Yep,
and said, "Do you mind doing a FaceTime call?" And I'll do that. And she just was so gracious and did that. And so I sent off a bunch of books to Claire, so that so that I knew that they were going into hands that would absolutely love them.
definitely.
And
Definitely.
and then
And
it's
funny story too, because we were just at McKay's bookstore recently and this week, and Peter was like, he picked up Ivanhoe and he was like, huh, this sounds interesting. And I'm like, we own it. Actually, Dia sent it to me and it was in that box of books that you sent me. And that's where my copy of Ivanhoe came from.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, and then we found out that we have a whole bunch of other things in common too. So
Mhm.
it's fun to just know that Tiffany has all of these things that I'm very familiar with, that she has experienced in her life as well. So I see that our time is coming to an end on 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 our Zoom call.
Yep.
So I will go ahead and wrap this up and just say thank you for joining us today. And Kelly and Talia, I can't wait to see what you guys do. And so like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.